The lower extremity. Let's start at the pelvic girdle and the hip bones. So take a look at the illustration there. You can see the sacrum there, which is joining together the two os coxa. You have one on each side. So os coxa, the hip bone. The pelvic girdle is the two hip bones united together at the pubic symphysis. So see in the middle there, the pubic symphysis? There's some fibrocartilage there in order to make it slightly flexible. Why does that need to be slightly flexible? Yeah, that's where the head of the little parasite has to get through. So you need it to be able to give a little bit so that little parasite can get out. Articulates posteriorly with the sacrum at the sacroiliac joints. So os coxa, as we're about to see, is actually made up of individual bones. Let's take a look at that now. The ilium, the pubis, and the ischium. Those were originally three separate bones when you first started developing, but then they fused together to form one bone called os coxa. So on the lab practical exams, I'll never ask you to identify exactly which is the ilium and which is the pubis and which is the ischium. We're just going to call all three, when they've fused together, os coxa. However, there are many parts of os coxa that are named for which of those bones they were originally on. So it does help a little bit to be familiar with ilium, pubis, and ischium, because we're going to see lots of terms, a lot of processes on the bone are going to have those words in them. So again, os coxa fuses after birth at the acetabulum. Acetabulum, I think, is going to come up in another slide. But in the acetabulum, you can actually see, and if we had the real bones like we do in the lab, if we were in the classroom, you can see where in an acetabulum all three bones, ilium, pubis, and ischium, all merge together. The bony pelvis, two hip bones, the sacrum, and the coccyx. So again, the sacrum fits in there. And again, if you look in the diagram, you'll see the illustration. It says sacroiliac joint. So that part of os coxa was originally the ilium. So that's why it's called the sacroiliac joint, because it's where the sacrum fits into what used to be the ilium. Okay? So here we see lateral views and medial views. Okay? Nice colors in order to show where those bones originally were. Now remember again, I won't ask you to tell me exactly which part is the ilium, which is the ischium, which is the pubis. But again, look and see it. Lots of the processes are named for that. And so let's just take a look. The iliac crest and the iliac spines are for muscle attachment. So the iliac crest, right by where your belt would be, on the side of your body, that big bony ridge that you can feel that kind of sticks out on some people? That big bony ridge is your iliac crest. And then take a look at the diagram, either on the left or on the right. As you come down further, as you get down onto the ischium, see how there's a sharp point sticking out? That's the ischial spine. Although here we're talking actually about the iliac spine. I don't make you know the iliac spine. That's not on your sheet. You don't have to know that from me. We will have to know the ischial spine. The iliac fossa for muscle attachment, I don't make you know that. It's not on your sheet. I'm just showing you where it is. The gluteal lines are where your glutes attach, those muscles. Again, you don't have to know that for the practical. These are just information for your own edification. Sacroiliac joint at the auricular surface and the iliac tuberosity. So again, you don't have to know those for the exam. I just put these in there for people that really want to know. If you're going to be a physical therapist, you might happen to know these things. Now here's something you do have to know. So I mentioned before the ischial spine. So notice the ischial spine is that point sticking out. You can see it, all right, on the red part. On the left, you can see the ischial spine. On the right, you can see the ischial spine. Notice how there's a big notch above the ischial spine. That's called the greater sciatic notch. That's where your sciatic nerve runs through. Sciatic nerve is the largest nerve in the human body. It runs down the back of your leg. So it goes through there, and then notice underneath the ischial spine is the lesser sciatic notch, because the nerve continues through there. So the sciatic notches are well named. That's where the sciatic nerve passes through. Lesser sciatic notch is also for the pudendal nerve, which we'll learn when we get to the nerves. The pudendal nerve goes to your pudenda. Maybe you already know what that means. If not, look it up. Should be good for a giggle. Okay, so ischium and pubis, here we go. The ischium, so ilium we just looked at. Ischium now, in that reddish color, The ischial spine and the tuberosity. So the ischial spine is what separated the greater and lesser sciatic notches. Then the ischial tuberosity we sometimes call your sit bone. Right now you're sitting on your big fat butt. Those are your ischial tuberosities that you're actually sitting on right now, okay? They're big and thick. If you look on a real bone, they're big, thick, and part, and that's because you've been sitting on them so much, all right? You need to get off your butt, get active, all right? The lesser sciatic notch mentioned before. So the ramus, again, ramus means branch. So this is that part of the ischium that's like the branch. So you can see the ischium comes down and then it turns and forms like a branch. That's the ramus of the ischium. Then the pubis, that's the blue colored bone here, kind of an azure maybe, I don't know. Powder blue, would that be better? I don't know, I'm still learning my Project Runway color names. It has a body, the body of the pubis, a superior and an inferior ramus. So it has two branches. The superior ramus goes up and connects to what used to be the ilium, and the inferior connects to the ischium. Pubic symphysis is a pad of fibrocartilage between the two pubic bones. So here you can't actually see it, but you can see where it would be. So on the left-hand side of the pubis bone, see that big sort of elongated oval there? That's where the cartilage would fit in. That would be the pubic symphysis. Then the obturator foramen, that's the big opening there. That's where the obturator nerve comes through. That's the opening between the ischium and the pubis. So if we were in class, I could hold that up and I would show you that you can always tell whether it's a left or a right os coxa by putting your thumb in the greater sciatic notch and then trying to hold the obturator foramen up to your mouth. And if it works really easily, so like if you grab it with your right hand and you can hold it like a telephone, then you know you've got a right os coxa. And then you speak into the obturator foramen and you say, "Obturator, get me the police." Yeah, that's stupid. But that's how you can tell. But since we don't have real bones, I don't know. You'll have to wait until the next level before you get to try that. Now, there are many differences. There are many ways to tell the difference between a female and a male pelvis, all right? And this is one of the things that forensic scientists have to do. You find a dead body that's been decomposed. There are many ways to tell if it was a male or female, but that's one, by looking at the female-male pelvis. I think the easiest way, look at the upper part of that illustration. Look on the left. See the female pelvis? The arch between the pubic bones is greater than 90 degrees. That's called the pubic arch. It's greater than 90 degrees. Look on the male. It's less than 90 degrees. And once again, why is that the case? Well, because a larger pubic arch means that there's a larger space so that the head of that little parasite can get through. So that's the easy way to tell. I might have you do that on a lab practical. All you have to do is look at that pubic arch. If it's less than 90 degrees, you got a male pelvis. If it's greater than 90 degrees, you got a female pelvis. And again, there are many, many more ways to tell, but we're going to leave it at that. So then going actually onto the lower extremity, we're done with os coxa. Each lower limb is 30 bones. Femur and patella within the thigh. So the femur is your thigh bone. Remember the thigh bone connected to the knee bone? Yeah, it's hip bone, whatever it is. I don't remember the song. Dude, that was like third grade. I was, oh my God, that was like 100 years ago for me. The patella, Latin, the little dish, that's your kneecap, all right? Tibia and fibula are in the lower leg. And by the way, I just did something you can't ever do. When you write these words down, there's a tibia and there's a fibula. There is no such thing as a fibia, and there's no such thing as a tibula. And if you ever write down either one of those words, it will be minus 50, okay? Minus 50 for tibula, minus 50 for fibia. The actual bones are tibia and fibula. And by the way, just to get this straight right now, the tibia is more medial, and the fibula is more lateral. Also, the tibia, that's your shin bone. It's big and strong and sturdy. Fibula is a little skinny bone over on the lateral side, on the outside of your leg. Hard to even sort of feel it. The tarsal bones are in the foot. Remember, in the wrist we had carpals. In the ankle we have tarsals. All right. Metatarsals correspond to metacarpals. Those again would be like the bones in the palm of your hand. Now they're sort of in what would be the palm of your foot. And then again, there are the phalanges. Once again, there's proximal, middle, and distal, except for the big toe, the hallux, as its name is. Whoops. No. Yeah, right. Hallux. Hallux is the big toe. So it has only a proximal and a distal. So the joints, hip, knee, and ankle joint, proximal and distal tibiofibular, that's where the tibia comes together with the fibula. The metatarsophalangeal, that's where the metatarsals come together with the phalanges. Oh, I talked over the transition, sorry. Again, you don't have to know those joint names for this exam, but you will for the next exam. So let's look at the femur. Femur is the strongest, heaviest, thickest bone of the human body. They say it's stronger than concrete. It says that in like every textbook. I've never tried that. Sometime that would be fun. We should take a dead body, take the femur out, and then see, subject them to stress and with concrete and see which one breaks first. Be a great experiment. Maybe one day, after class, we could get somebody to volunteer to die, and then we could take your femur out and test it. So, articulates with os coxa and the tibia. The head fits into the acetabulum, all right? So, the acetabulum, by the way, I don't think I mentioned properly when we were on os coxa. The acetabulum is the big socket where the head of the femur fits in. Acetabulum, by the way, means a cup of vinegar, like acid, like acetic acid. So back before you had Tupperware and Rubbermaid, you would use the hip bone of, a dead relative or a cow or whatever, and that's how you could measure a cup of vinegar. So the acetabulum was the socket. The head of the femur fits into that socket. The medial and lateral condyles, remember condyle means like a knuckle. So down at the bottom, see those big knuckle-like things? Those are the medial and lateral condyles. And then, of course, above them are the medial and lateral epicondyles. All right? The neck, by the way, you can see up above, there's the head of the femur. Then there's the neck. The neck is a common fracture site. When people break their hip, sometimes that's really what it is. They break the neck of the femur. That's a very serious injury, especially in old people. Oftentimes, with my grandma, that's when she went from being able to walk to being in a wheelchair. There's just no way to fix that. An old woman with osteoporosis, yeah, that's just tough to deal with. She was in a wheelchair from the day that she broke her hip, from that day on. So muscle attachments at the greater and lesser trochanters. So see up at the top, the greater and the lesser trochanter. That's where some of your big leg muscles fit on. Obviously, the greater trochanter is bigger than the lesser trochanter. That's how they got named. It's so easy, right? Easy questions. What's big and red and eats rocks? A big red rock eater. How many months have 28 days? All of them, okay? So the linea aspera literally means linea, line, aspera, sharp, the sharp line. So if we could see a real bone, you would be able to see that there's a sharp line running the length of the femur, and that is the linea aspera. The gluteal tuberosity, I don't make you know, that's just on this diagram. Patellar surface is visible between the two condyles. That's where the patella fits in. All right. Continuing with the femur, the fovea capitis is the little dent in the head. Fovea capitis, fovea basically means a spot. Capitis means of the head, so it's the spot of the head. It's a little tiny indentation on the head of the femur. Medial epicondyles are above the condyles. I mentioned that before. The intercondylar fossa. So here you can see, by the way, in this diagram, the condyles really look like big knuckles, don't they? That's why they're called condyles. Then see how there's a space in between? That is the intercondylar fossa. It's the fossa between the condyles. Now going on then to the patella. Patella is a triangular sesamoid bone. Sesamoid bones form inside of connective tissue, so that's why it has that name. It has an apex and a base. The apex is the point, the base is the flat part. So notice, a lot of times people are used to thinking of the base at the bottom, the apex on the top, but here it's upside down. The base is on the top and the apex is on the bottom. So the apex again is the point, the base is the relatively flat end of the bone. It has articular facets where it meets the femur, all right? That's where the two condyles of the femur fit in. Increases the leverage of the quadriceps femoris tendon. So quadriceps femoris, one of the big muscles that you call your quads. So the patella actually works to help increase the strength of your leg, believe it or not. Alright, going down onto the tibia, your shin bone. It's the medial and larger bone of your lower leg. It's the weight-bearing bone. When you stand up, your body weight is being supported by your tibia. The fibula does not support your body weight. What do you suppose the fibula would be for? Think about it. We'll answer it pretty soon. So the head of the tibia, that's what fits up with the femur. So the head is a big, sort of rounded end of the tibia. Then there are the lateral and medial condyles. So the head of the tibia has two big knuckle-like things on it, one on the lateral side, one on the medial side. Those are the lateral and medial condyles of the head of the tibia. Then in between the condyles is a little thing sticking up. It doesn't really show up very well in this picture here, but there's a little bony process that sticks up between the two condyles, and that's where your knee ligaments are going to attach. You've heard of ligaments, like the ones that people all, when people get they snap their knee ligaments in some kind of a football or basketball injury, those little ligaments in there. So those ligaments are connected to the intercondylar eminence, all right? We'll see that when we do the joints. The tibial tuberosity is for patellar ligament attachment. So again, the tibial tuberosity, a big knobby thing on the end of the tibia. The proximal tibiofibular joint, so that's one up near the knee. That's where the fibula fits into the tibia. The fibular notch is down on the bottom. That's where the fibula fits into the tibia on the bottom. So again, just where bones are coming together to make joints. The medial malleolus or malleolus, and you also have the lateral malleolus or malleolus. Dang it, I didn't mean to do that. So if you feel down at your ankle, you know how remember when we did the wrist, I was saying you feel the knobby things on your wrist? Those were the styloid processes, the radius and the ulna. Well, at your ankle, you got those two big knobby things. The knobby thing on the medial side is the medial malleolus. All right, that's actually part of the tibia. And then the knobby thing on the lateral side is the lateral malleolus. That's part of the fibula. So those two big knobby things are the two. Each one is a malleolus or malleolus. People pronounce it both ways. Don't worry about that. So fibula, smaller than the tibia, not weight-bearing, not part of the knee joint. Only the tibia is part of the knee joint. Fibula, I asked you to think of what the fibula would be for if it didn't bear your weight. The fibula is for muscle attachments. A lot of the muscles of your lower leg attach to the fibula. A lot of the muscles that control movement of your foot and toes, they attach to the fibula. We have the head of the fibula on the proximal end and the lateral malleolus at the ankle. On a real bone, the way you can tell those apart is that the head is rounder and thicker. The lateral malleolus is thinner and flatter. We won't be able to see that on a real bone, unfortunately. Just got to try to imagine that on the illustration. And again, it fits into the fibular notch at the distal end of the tibia. That's how they all fit together. So finally, the tarsal bones and the metatarsals and the phalanges. You have 7 tarsal bones that constitute the ankle, which is also called your tarsus. They share the weight associated with walking. So they've got to support your body's weight. They're pretty darn important. That's why a broken ankle, a sprained ankle, it's pretty hard to walk. You can't support your weight anymore. The 5 metatarsal bones are contained in the foot, just like the metacarpals were in the palm of your hand. Fractures of the metatarsals common among dancers, especially ballet dancers, also martial artists. When you're kicking somebody all the time, it's those metatarsals that can break. Metatarsal fractures also occur when you drop something heavy on your foot. Broken metatarsal be very painful. Oftentimes they just try to kind of keep you from walking on your foot for a while, and it will generally heal up 4 to 6 weeks, something, I don't know. Arrangement of the phalanges is just the same as it was in your hand, okay? Let's take a look at the whole foot with all these tarsal bones. So the talus is the ankle bone that articulates with the tibia and the fibula. So that's actually your ankle joint. So Look right there on the left diagram. You can see the talus. We can see the tibia would be coming down and resting on top of the talus. So that's really your ankle joint. When you rock your foot backwards and forwards, you're basically rotating your foot. You're rotating the talus around the end of the tibia. Calcaneus is your heel bone, that big prominent bone, the back of your foot, the heel, that's your calcaneus. The cuboid, navicular, and the three cuneiforms, so let's just take a look here. Look at the left diagram. So you see first comes the medial, and then the intermediate, and then the lateral cuneiforms. Those are underneath metatarsals 1, 2, and 3. Then notice metatarsals 4 and 5 don't get their own bone. There's just one bone that goes between them. That is the cuboid. Then notice the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiforms all make a joint with the navicular. Navicular, once again, comes from the Latin root word meaning a boat, like navy. All right. So remember, in your wrist you have the scaphoid. That was the boat. That was the Greek root word. In your foot you have the navicular. That's the Latin word for boat. And in fact, those two bones correspond to one another. The navicular in the foot corresponds to the scaphoid in the wrist. In fact, when I broke my wrist, the surgeon who worked on it called it the navicular, because they're essentially just the same bone in different parts of the body. And here you see the metatarsals. Again, they're numbered from 1 to 5. 1 is the big toe, 5 is your little pinky toe. Those are the metatarsals. And then again you have the phalanges, the digits. Individual is a phalanx. And again you have the proximal, middle, and distal. Except for the big toe, it has only proximal and distal. Big toe is hallux. Your thumb is pollex. So we'll see later there are muscles called hallucis. Those are muscles that move your big toe. And there are muscles called pollicis. Those are muscles that move your thumb. Pollex and hallux. Pollex is the thumb. Hallux is the big toe. And arches of the foot. I don't have this on your sheet. You don't really have to know it. But a lot of people have trouble with their arches. So it's actually important. People that have flat feet are people that lack the arches. Okay, so it should be that you're putting weight mostly on the so-called ball of your foot. Those are your metatarso-phalangeal joints, and the heel of your foot. That makes it easier to walk if those are the only two touching. If your whole foot falls down and makes contact with the ground, it makes you slower. Also makes it more likely to say ouch when you step on something. But those are the arches of the foot. They're not critical. I don't have them on your sheet, but just so that you know maybe just a little bit about them, okay? So we are done. That takes care of the appendicular skeleton. We are done with the bones.